ago during a town hall that I hosted along with Representative Leader Daniels, we had the opportunity to listen to the needs and concerns of the citizens we serve. Overwhelmingly, they wanted to know, what are we doing in Montgomery to help families deal with rising costs of living, especially at the grocery store? They also wanted to know how we plan to absorb the massive federal budget cuts that will negatively impact Alabama, a state that gets back $2 in federal funding for every $1 we pay in taxes. That's why the final days of this session, I'm calling on my colleagues in the legislature to renew and keep their focus on helping Alabama families during this time of rising costs and economic uncertainty. Yet, when we talk about helping families, we often talk in generalities, when we should be talking about those who need the help the most. That would certainly include our young women who are trying to raise a family on one income as a single parent. So when we talk about helping families, we cannot overlook the single parents who are struggling with high costs of raising a newborn or a young growing child. That is what led me to sponsor House Bill 555, the Single Parent Support Income Tax Credit. This bill would allow for a single parent to receive an annual income tax credit of $5,000 until the child turned 5 years old. This tax credit is needed specifically in Alabama due to the limited options that pregnant women have in our state because of the consequences of Alabama's total ban on abortions, which has no exceptions for rape or incest. The state law leaves many women with no choice but to carry their pregnancy to term, often as a single parent. This bill would provide economic relief to single moms and would improve the quality of life of both parents and children by easing some of the economic pressure they face. To better understand the urgency of passing this legislation, it is also important to know that 20% of the households are single-parent households in Alabama. That's well over 100,000 single-parent families that would benefit from this tax credit. We can all agree that helping Alabama families should be a top legislative priority. So let's help those who need it the most. Give single parents the economic relief they need during these uncertain times. Thank you. I now would like to introduce my colleague from Thomasville, House District 68, Representative Thomas Jackson.
Thank you, Representative Hall. I appreciate and support your bill significantly that will help single parents who are struggling financially. I would also add that when we talk about helping families, we have also to remember those who live in rural areas of the state. They don't have the same access to resources of those that live in urban areas. This is an issue that has become increasingly important as we try to access high-speed broadband internet, and it is no longer seen as a luxury, but as a basic and necessity utility. Everything seems to be online, and where we're shopping and at school and interacting on government agencies, we have become increasingly dependent on the internet. And sometimes you get the buzzing sound. It doesn't connect. And we're going through those issues. That's why we are fighting so hard for broadband. Yet many families who live in rural Alabama, like many of the people in my district, have little or no access to the internet. That's why I intend to sponsor the Rural Connectivity and Innovative Act, which would establish a state-funded grant that would make programming to expand high-speed broadband and have the access to underserved farming communities. This act would prioritize public and private partnership and offer tax credit to help farmers adopt broadband enabling technology. With the strong accountability measures and funding gap, this will spur rural economic development and in agricultural and innovativeness while ensuring physical responsibilities. Even on a small family farm, access to internet is essential because modern day farming harness the new technologies and innovations that requires high-speed broadband connectivity. It keeps small farmers competitive by maximizing their harvest and keeping them updated in real time with news, information, and resources they can need to be successful. This bill is an investment that will pay off for rural economic communities. That's because grant recipients would be required to submit progress reports and undergo state performance audits to ensure effectiveness and in the use of their funds. In addition, this act would provide for outreach campaigns and technological training programs to support rural communities and farmers in learning how to be best use their broadband and enabling technologies. Although we have made tremendous progress in our efforts to expand internet connectivity in rural Alabama, we still have a long way to go. High-speed broadband is central for modern agricultural and operations in the rural economic development. That's why we should continue our efforts to help underserved farming communities who desperately need access to high-speed internet. We must also assist farmers by teaching them how to get the most out of their new and emerging technology so they can maintain their competitive edge. This would be a significant, meaningful step forward towards eliminating the digital divide and help rural families to become productive. And I thank you, and I would like at this time to introduce my colleague, Representative Rolanda Hollis from Birmingham, who represents House District 68.
Thank you, and it's House District 58. But thank you.
58.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Let me begin by saying that I strongly agree with my colleagues about the importance of helping families and giving priorities to those who need it most. However, sometimes families need other types of help that aren't financial in nature. They may be dealing with substance abuse problems, mental health issues, and even domestic violence in the home. Sometimes in extreme circumstances, in situations that are unimaginable, children can become victims of abuse and have to deal with that trauma for a lifetime. So when we discuss helping families and also targeting our efforts to help those most in need, that should include doing everything we can to help survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Due to the intensity of the trauma they endure, many of these survivors do not report the abuse or file legal claims within the time allotted by law. This arbitrary deadline for filing a report or initiate a lawsuit means that in many cases, crimes go unreported and unprosecuted, which means justice is denied. That's why I am introducing the Light of Justice Act, which would empower survivors of childhood sexual abuse by giving them the ability to file civil claims for past abuse regardless of how much time has elapsed. This would enable them to seek justice and accountability regardless of when the abuse occurred. Many childhood abuse survivors deal with many years of intensive therapy. This is very passionate to me, guys, before they are able to discuss any of their experiences. Many also deal with a host of psychological issues related to the abuse, such as repressed memories. Yet, the law requires them to take swift and highly personal action when they are often still struggling to heal from intense and life-altering trauma. The act takes away that barrier. The Light of Justice Act would also waive serious immunity for government entities, mandate public awareness campaigns, and protect individuals for retaliation. Transparency and survivor protections are central to this legislation. According to the latest data on the Alabama Department of Public Health website, child abuse cases have been steadily increasingly throughout the years. There were 8,466 child malnutrition victims in 2015. And the number increased to 12,158 new victims in 2018. Also, there were 23.3 child abuse calls per 1,000 children under the age of 18 years old in 2019. The act is incredibly important because it creates a public awareness campaign to inform survivors of their rights, resources. In addition, and perhaps even more critical, it will protect individuals from retaliation for filing claims. And you would not know how this feels if you have not sat down to talk with victims that had to deal with this type of abuse. So for too long and too far, many justice has been delayed or denied. So we discuss legislation to help Alabama families. We must also think about how we can help those who have survived unimaginable abuse and severely broken families. This is all about justice. This is how the light of justice can help survivors tell their stories without fear, have their cases heard in court, and most importantly, begin the process that's so important, the process of healing. Thank you at this time, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So these these proposals that you all are talking about, how soon can we expect them to be seen on the floor or in committee?
Well, so our hope is, I think the bill that I introduced, hopefully we will have it, the request has been to have it in committee. But we know that we're dealing with difficult challenges since we're so close to the end of the session. But that doesn't prevent us from continuing to push to make sure we have an opportunity for our bills to be heard.
All three have very valuable needs that should be addressed, would you say?
Sure.
I would like to address something here as it relates to committees.
Yes, sir.
I know we don't have but a few days in this session, but I've been introducing the bills for 14 years, and it's still in committee. Early voting for the state of Alabama. So it's hard to get through that message because when you have the bosses of the Secretary of State and the MAGA crowd doesn't want access to voting for the people of the state, there's a precedent vote, and we're trying to give people more access to the ballot box. And so we're in a bit, so that's where we are at this time. That's why we're introducing these bills, to get a message out. These needs are necessary. Our people are in need of these things. And so we know there's a short time to do it. Getting to a committee on the floor is not going to happen in this session, but we're looking forward to the future sessions.
And I would like to say that we need to start thinking about our children and to remember that mental health is real. And we need to also look at that years to come, our children, future children, will be standing here where we are. And we want them to be in the best mental capacity that we can help as legislators get them there. And so we need to stop thinking about things that are unnecessary and start thinking about the things that will help the families within all of our districts, not just some of our districts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.